When it comes to home audio systems, I'm all for big, elaborate, high-end setups because they can give us amazing listening experiences. But I appreciate there is a time and place for them. Whereas I can see the appeal in an audio system that is small, that is easy to set up and easy to live with, and most importantly, that's very affordable, providing it can still give us a fair percentage of that same amazing listening experience. But I'm not sure the technology has been available to do it, not properly until recent years, and certainly not at the price level of system I'm going to talk to you about in this video. And I am referring to the Valerion Thunderbeat speaker system. That is a wireless, fully active Dolby ATMOS speaker and subwoofer package. Some would call this a home cinema in a box system, but don't let that categorization fool you. And the package includes 4 symmetrical looking wireless active speakers that are made from plastic but do feel fairly solid and well built. And they have a nice styling that mirrors the styling of Valerion projectors such as the Vision Master Max that I have been testing the Thunderbeats with. Each speaker has a 4-inch front firing driver with a larger than average 1.5-inch tweeter, plus a 2-inch up-firing driver for reflective Dolby ATMOS sound duties. Each speaker has 60 watts of amplification, which from the 100 Hz and up that the speaker plays, so just mid-range and treble, that is a lot of power, so you can expect this system to play loud enough for reasonable sized rooms. And you might ask, if all the speakers look identical, how do you know which is intended for the front left or rear right speaker duties? There is a labelling on the underside of each speaker, as well as access for that speaker's power cable and a second thread for mounting the speaker either to the wall, on a stand or something similar. Super critical to this system is the slimline 120 watt ported subwoofer that uses a 6.5-inch bass driver and has a claimed 30 to 100 Hz frequency response. And this subwoofer has really impressed me for what it can do, especially from a 6.5-inch bass driver, because that is a small driver for a subwoofer. And being slim, I think it's designed to be hidden out of the way. And I think you might want to hide this subwoofer because its visual styling is pretty basic. For the wireless signal connectivity of this system, there is a HDMI dongle that you plug into an EARC HDMI port. That allows the system to automatically turn on and off with your display, and you can change the system volume from other remote controls. The dongle does need 5-volt power from USB-C, but the cables you need are included or very easy to get if you need something different. It also has Bluetooth connectivity for sending music to the system and some other inputs for connecting other audio devices. The wireless system used is very low latency, and it uses proprietary frequencies that can hop between several if you're having signal issues. But I didn't have any issues at all in my room, which was great. And in addition to the main 4 speakers, I also have the matching center speaker that is very small and slimline and designed to be mounted on a wall, and there are fixtures included for this, or maybe you could sit it on top of some furniture. The speaker uses a 48 by 90mm main driver with a 1.5-inch tweeter that are both front firing, with again the same 60 watts of amplification power. The center speaker can be added to the system at any time. It auto connects to the other speakers, and I think the system sounded better with the center speaker than without, which I think stands to reason. So this is now a 5.1.2 Dolby ATMOS audio system, and multi-channel audio systems I think are great. But how much does this all cost? And this is where things get interesting. On the Valerion website, the 4 speaker and sub package costs £1,499, and if you want the center speaker, it's £1,798. So a chunk of money for sure, but not crazy really for a good wireless Dolby Atmos audio system. However, looking up the package on Amazon, the price for the 4 speaker and sub package is more agreeable at £1,299, but with a crazy deal, if you're quick enough, of £500 off. Now this system looks very enticing, and you can buy the center speaker individually, and Valerion sell that for £299, and there'll be links below for everything, of course. And to set the system up, I think is deliberately super simple. Everything is done from the included remote control using its screen. It is a very basic setup where you can adjust simple things like your bass and treble level, your surround speaker's volume, and a few other things. There is not much in the way of what I would call audio calibration controls, but there was enough for me to get a great result, but it's not as comprehensive as a power user might want. There are some different sound modes to choose between, but with no real explanation as to what they all do. One option to pay attention to is auto dim, as that will dim the LEDs on the front of the speakers, and I appreciated that. Another is the mapping option. If you have the center speaker, I would suggest turning the mapping feature on, as it will likely sound better. It's definitely worth trying that mode out. And I definitely appreciated how quick and how easy this system was to have set up and have playing. And I used two different types of stands for the speakers. I used some cheap light stands from Amazon, which I think were about £15 each or £20 each, and that was fine. That worked great, but it's not a very elegant or attractive solution. Much nicer looking are the dedicated matching stands that have a platform that fits the speakers perfectly. And they also include a power cable extension that runs down the center column for a much neater overall installation. And there is also a nicer weight balance with the stands because there is all the weight in the base, and that improves stability, and I appreciated that. But the stands come with a higher cost. They are £179 for the pair. But if this is a long-term audio investment, having it look nice, I think will pay off in the long run. If you are new to this type of audio system, there is an image on the Valerion website that gives you a guide for where each speaker and the subwoofer should be placed in the room, and that could be helpful. However, I have a slightly different suggestion. In that image, the rear speakers, the surround speakers, are aiming kind of diagonal towards in front of the listening position, more towards the center of the room. And I've always found that surround speakers, especially side surround speakers, sound better when you have them firing more towards the back of you, kind of behind your head, maybe towards your head, but more slightly behind your head if you can. That is my big tip of the day. And I want you to bear in mind that this was all a temporary setup for me, so I didn't go all in to make everything look super neat and tidy. And it was also lucky that the speakers and stands fitted perfectly either side of my brand new 133-inch drop-down projector screen. And I've just made a video about this screen and why it's a great choice for Valerion's triple laser projectors like the Max and the Pro 2, and that video is worth checking out. And I couldn't mount the center speaker to the wall, so I made a makeshift stand for it and covered that in some black cloth. So I know that is ugly, but it got the job done. More important was the subwoofer position being central across the front wall, and that is opposite where I sit. And that is just a great spot in this room for a subwoofer and for bass. But I positioned it a few inches from the wall as I felt the bass quality was better as it was less aggressive. But the lesson here is where you position speakers and a subwoofer in your room will impact their sound, and that is something to expect again if you are new. For testing the Thunderbeat system, I watched a lot of movies and some music videos that were streamed from YouTube. And of course, YouTube is not the best quality, but it can still give you a great overall experience. And watching some Ed Sheeran, some Adele, and some fantastically well-produced Miley Cyrus live videos, and the BBC Live Lounge video of Midnight Sky is particularly fantastic, as are the backyard sessions. Flowers in particular is really good. And of course, I watched all of these videos just for the music. All I can say is I was very happy watching all of them because of the very solid overall audio experience that was definitely helped by the glorious massive picture. It was here that I tested all of the different sound modes, and the music mode makes the system sound a little bit more pleasing, a little bit more graceful, a little bit more easy to listen to. So maybe that is a great mode to test. News seemed to take the bass away, so I would see that more of a nighttime kind of mode, right? If you don't want to upset the neighbors or maybe kids who are asleep. KTV seemed to emphasize the vocals and make them louder and a bit clearer. So if you're a little harder of hearing for vocals, maybe that would be a good mode to try. Custom would be more like what I would call a flat sound mode, and it did sound a bit flat, and I didn't like it anywhere near as much as the movie sound mode. That is the mode that I used all of the time because for me it was just balanced the best because it seemed like the most complete in terms of everything. Plus it was a little bit more lively, a little bit more energetic sounding, a little bit more exciting. And I watched loads of bombastic soundtrack movies like Pacific Rim, Mad Max Furiosa, different Batman movies, including the Lego one, some Hobbit movies, the Spider-Man Spider-Verse movies, and many more over a period of several weeks. And these are all movies that I'm super familiar with their soundtracks and have watched them on big audio systems that I have set up and calibrated. So I had high expectations of what is possible. And I also watched some movies with my kids, including K-pop Demon Hunters, which has a fantastic soundtrack, and Tron Legacy, that has a classic fantastic soundtrack, and some others. And I had the system playing for around 5 hours a day for the testing weeks, and I've been nothing but impressed with the overall solid audio quality and the overall experience. And that is because I think this is just a nicely balanced overall sounding system that's not trying too hard to be over detailed or overly hyper analytical sounding, which can make an audio system, I think, sound really quite dry and, again, analytical. It's not trying to be like that. I think Valerion have tuned the system just to be nice and just to be pleasing and just to be balanced nicely across the whole thing. And yes, it's still quite lively and upbeat, especially in the movie sound mode. So it's quite fun, it's quite exciting to listen to, but it's also pleasant and pleasing, with nothing that really stands out as irritating or harsh or any negative like that. But this is definitely helped by having the mapping option turned on again with the center speaker in the system. And never once did I find it difficult to hear voices or speech, and that is very important. The surround steering was good, it was good enough. And the sense of height in the soundstage was good too. And overall, I found it an easy system to be immersed in the movie or music I was watching, because I wasn't really thinking about the audio system. I could just sit and enjoy the whole experience. And that was because there was just nothing standout negative about the system, nothing that was irritating me, because if there was, I would have been fiddling with the controls to try and fix it. And that includes the bass. The subwoofer was putting out enough of a higher quality bass to create a foundation to the 5 speakers for a big, full, warm, pleasing overall sound, where the bass was impactful and full, and yeah, it just balanced the system, so it was actually quite warm. I had it set up so it was a nice, warm, full, pleasing overall sound. Again, of course, to a point. And that was for music too. And music's an interesting one because it's so important within movies, because it's the music that triggers our emotions. And there is a great test for this. We are all familiar with the emotional roller coaster that is the first 5 minutes of the Disney movie Up, where it goes from like a childlike mood to super happy to super sad. And all of these emotional shifts are triggered by the soundtrack. So did the Thunderbeat put a tear in my eye? I'm not embarrassed to say yes, it did. It translated the emotions of Up fantastically well. And sitting there with my 2 sons, we watched quite a few music videos, and they particularly like Ed Sheeran, and some of the newer Ed Sheeran music videos are amazing. They're amazingly well done. Many stories in a music video, they were amazingly well done. And my sons loved the experience because, of course, you've got a big screen, you've got a really nice audio system, and it makes the music they're familiar with, the Ed Sheeran music, more of a visceral experience. And I know they really enjoyed it because the next day they asked to watch it again. And that to me is always a sign, it's like maybe for the first time Dad's audio system's fun for them. So like there's something in that. There's something in that experience to share with your family that you cannot really put a price on. But look, not everything was perfect here. For the big blockbuster movies I watched, I could hear where the subwoofer had a limit. But fair play to it, it did deliver significantly more punchy, feel it on your body bass than I expected. So I really liked and appreciated that. However, I can imagine in some rooms that's certainly larger than this one, or just depending on the setup of the room, having more subwoofers, having 2 subwoofers would be massively advantageous. And I spoke to Valerion, they told me that's not possible at the moment. The system only uses one, can only use one subwoofer. So maybe that is a shame. And also the fact that the system doesn't offer any type of room auto compensation EQ system that I know some competitor products offer. That is also a shame, or something that maybe is missing here too, and a point of distinction. And another thing that I noticed, and it was literally only watching my own videos on YouTube, with the mapping option set on, I was hearing some kind of weird popping sound, especially at certain types of volumes, again, just with my own YouTube videos, but turning the mapping option off seemed to solve that. So look, the reason I'm mentioning this is because if you hear any audio weirdness going on with YouTube, obviously turning mapping off could solve it, but it might only be with my own videos. And I am now looking into, how I produce the videos and the way I edit the sound. So it just is what it is. Who do I think this system is for? Well, anyone who wants a good quality, very easy, relatively affordable audio system to just enjoy music and movies to a much higher standard than what a basic soundbar would offer you. And I know that will be a lot of people. But the reason this system stood out to me is because working as an audio system calibrator for a number of years, I visited a few people's homes and set up some pretty big cinema systems in some quite small rooms. And I think the reason those people bought those audio systems is because they thought that is what they needed to have to get a better than, average soundbar experience. And that's what makes me say, like, this technology wasn't really available, not to this kind of standard and at this kind of cost up until recent times. So I think these days a system like this could be a viable alternative for a bigger cinema system, depending on what kind of experience you're looking for. Do you want a system that's just good enough to sit and watch TVs and movies and music with the family? Or are you looking for something that's really big and visceral and it's really going to give you a big impact type of system? Because there is like a transition point. There is a difference between those. Like I said, a time and place for everything. But of course, there are also other systems these days from different other brands that are offering something similar. And one that stands out to me is the Sony Bravia system. The reason it stands out is because, yes, it looks really quite fancy, but it's also significantly more expensive than this system. And I think it does a few processing things more than the Valerion system offers, but it's like potentially with the current price, thousands of pounds more. And the reason that stands out to me is because of the experience I've had of a lot of small systems now and really big home cinema or Dolby ATMOS systems. And there is a difference. And I think with a smaller system like this, there will be a limit to what this kind of system can give you. And yes, not all speakers and your systems are built the same. I appreciate that. But at some point, physics comes into play because we are talking about the differences between small systems, small speakers and small subwoofers, and there will be a limit to what that system can offer you. And I feel like the Thunderbeat system, which is there, not there, the Thunderbeat system is already probably pushing that limit, right? It's an overachiever in terms of what you get for the cost and for the size. So like, could a Sony system be, in raw sound quality terms, thousands of pounds better? I struggle with that one, but look, take that for what it is because I don't have the Sony system here to compare. I want to close out the video with a well done to the Valerion engineering team because this Thunderbeat speaker package has really surprised me. Yes, of course, it has a limit, but that limit's higher than I expected. It's massively impressed and surprised me, not in any one particular area, but just for how easy it's been to use and how easy it's been for me to enjoy, like hours and hours of listening to this system. And I've enjoyed every second. It's been a lot of fun. So yeah, well done to the Valerion engineering team. And yeah, I hope this video has been helpful. It's been useful. And yeah, if you've enjoyed it, hit the thumbs up and subscribe to the channel to see more.